Mohon izin kepada Bapak dan Ibu, acara akan segera kami mulai. May we have your kind attention, the event will begin shortly. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi dan salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Good morning and a very warm welcome to us all. Yang kami hormati seluruh hadirin yang berbahagia, honorable distinguished guests and participants. Hadirin yang kami hormati, marilah kita menyanyikan lagu Indonesia Raya dan Mars Undip. Hadirin dimohon dapat duduk tegak dan memposisikan diri. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to join us in singing the Indonesian National Anthem Indonesia Raya, followed by Diponegoro University March. We kindly ask everyone to sit or stand respectfully and maintain a proper posture during the performance. Terima kasih. Thank you. Hadirin yang kami hormati, distinguished guests and participants, selamat datang dalam acara A warm welcome to this event, writing a great paper and getting it published. Hadir dalam kesempatan ini, we are honored by the presence of Wakil Rektor Sumber Daya Manusia, Teknologi Informasi, Hukum, dan Organisasi Universitas Diponegoro, Vice Rector for Human Resource, Information Technology, Law, and Organization Diponegoro University, Profesor Dr. Adil Faturahim STMT, Kepala UPT Perpustakaan dan UNDIP Press, Head of UPT Perpustakaan dan UNDIP Press, Mr. Suwondo SMM.Com, Supervisor Tata Usaha UPT Perpustakaan dan UNDIP Press, Administration Supervisor Mrs. Linda Wahyuningsi SIKOM FIKOM, narasumber dari Manager Tim Customer Success untuk wilayah Asia Selatan dan Asia Tenggara, speaker from Customer Success Team Manager for South Asia and Southeast Asia, Mr. Nicholas Pak, moderator dari Manager Customer Success Elsevier, moderator from Customer Success Team Manager for South Asia and Southeast Asia, Mr. Pradipta Faikar Hakim, serta seluruh peserta yang kami banggakan, and all respected participants joining us today. Selamat datang dan selamat bergabung. A very welcome to everyone. Sebagai ungkapan rasa syukur, as an expression of gratitude, marilah kita menundukkan kepala sejenak untuk berdoa. Let us take a moment to bow our heads in prayer. Berdoa sesuai keyakinan masing-masing dimulai. The prayer begins according to each belief. Terima kasih, thank you. Selanjutnya adalah sambutan dan pembukaan acara. We will now proceed to the opening remarks and official opening. Kepada yang terhormat, we respectfully invite Profesor Dr. Adil Faturahim STMT. Waktu dan tempat kami persilahkan. The time and the floor are yours.
Terima kasih Mbak Shirley. Suara saya bisa didengar ya?
Ya, terdengar Pak.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Distinguished Mr. Nicholas Pak, as Customer Success Team Manager for South Asia and Southeast Asia Elsevier, Honorable Mr. Pradipta Sari Faikar Hakim, Customer Success Manager Elsevier, as our moderator, Mr. Suwondo as Head of Library and UNDIP Press, Mbak Linda as Supervisor, distinguished lecturers, researchers, students, and members of Universitas Diponegoro Academic Community, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning to you all. On behalf of UNDIP, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to today's webinar. Writing a great paper and getting it published, organized by UPT Perpustakaan dan UNDIP Press in collaboration with Elsevier. First of all, I would like to express our sincere appreciation to Elsevier for its continued partnership in supporting research excellence and scholarly publishing. We are honored to have Mr. Nicholas Pak, and my appreciation also goes to Mr. Pradipta Sari Faikar Hakim as moderator today. At Diponegoro University, we are committed to strengthening our research ecosystem and increasing the quality and global impact of our scientific publication. As the Vice Rector overseeing, among others, library affairs, I highly appreciate the important role of UPT Perpustakaan dan UNDIP Press in supporting our lecturers, researchers, and students throughout their research and publication journey. Today's webinar provides an excellent opportunity to gain practical insights into writing high-quality scientific papers and successfully publishing them in reputable international journals. I encourage all participants to actively engage in the discussion, ask questions, and make the most of this valuable learning opportunity. Before we begin today's webinar, let us seek Allah's blessing by reciting together Basmalah with the recitation of Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I hereby officially declare this webinar open. Bunga melati harum mewangi, tumbuh subur di tepi taman. Selamat mengikuti acara hari ini. Semoga paper terbit di jurnal impian. Thank you for your attention. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih atas sambutan yang telah disampaikan. Thank you very much for the inspiring remarks. Hadirin yang kami hormati, distinguished participants, selanjutnya kita akan melakukan sesi foto bersama. We will now proceed to a group photo session. Pada kesempatan ini, kami mohon izin kepada seluruh pejabat, panitia akan mengabadikan acara hari ini dengan foto bersama. On this occasion, we would like to kindly ask for the permission for our distinguished official. The organizing committee will capture today's event through a group photo session. Professor Dr. Adia Fatsulayu STMT, Mr. Suwondo S.Sum M.Com, Mrs. Linda Wahyuningsi S.Ikom and Ikom, Mr. Nicholas Pak, and Mr. Pradipta Faikar Hakim, untuk berkenan mengikuti sesi foto bersama, serta kepada Bapak Ibu peserta dimohon dapat mengikuti sesi foto bersama dengan mengaktifkan kamera. Kami informasikan pengambilan gambar sebanyak 2 kali dalam hitungan ketiga. We kindly invite our distinguished guests to join the photo session. We also kindly ask all participants to turn on their cameras and be ready for the photo session. We will take 2 pictures and each photo will be taken out on the count of 3. Baik, gaya pertama adalah gaya formal. Alright, the first pose is the formal pose. Dalam hitungan ketiga, on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Gaya kedua adalah salam literasi. Silahkan membentuk huruf L menggunakan jari tangan kanan. The second pose is the literacy greeting. Please make the letter L with the fingers of your right hand. Dalam hitungan ketiga, on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Terima kasih, thank you. Baik, Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, selanjutnya saya akan membacakan tata tertib webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin the webinar, I would like to read the webinar guidelines. Pertama, ID peserta menggunakan nama asli dengan format nama _ instansi. First, please use your full name as your participant ID using the following format, name _ institution. Kedua, peserta dimohon mematikan mikrofon selama acara berlangsung. Second, kindly keep your microphone mute throughout the webinar. Ketiga, peserta dapat mengajukan pertanyaan secara ringkas melalui raise hand atau ditulis di Q&A atau kolom chat dengan format nama _ instansi _ pertanyaan. Third, if you would like to ask a question, you may use the raise hand feature or submit your question through the Q&A section or the chat box using the following format, name _ institution _ question. Keempat, link kehadiran peserta akan dibagikan di akhir acara dan akan ditutup 30 menit setelah acara berakhir. Fourth, the attendance link will be shared at the end of the webinar and will remain available for 30 minutes after the evening concludes. Kelima, dimohon untuk menuliskan nama dan alamat email dengan benar. Fifth, please ensure that you enter your name and email address correctly when completing the attendance form. Keenam, sertifikat dan rekaman webinar akan dibagikan melalui email. Six, a certificate and the webinar recording will be distributed via email. Baik, memasuki acara inti webinar Writing a Great Paper and Getting It Published akan dipandu sepenuhnya oleh moderator. Beliau adalah Customer Success Manager Elsevier. Moderator webinar kali ini adalah Bapak Pradipta Faikar Hakim. Kami persilakan. Now, we are moving on the main session of today's event. The webinar entitled Writing a Great Paper and Getting It Published will be moderated by our moderator. He is Mr. Pradipta Faikar Hakim, Customer Success Manager at Elsevier. Without further ado, we would like to invite Mr. Pradipta Faikar Hakim to lead today's session. Mr. Pradipta, the floor is yours. Good morning, Mr. Pradipta.
Selamat pagi, Mbak Shirley. Terima kasih. Baik, terima kasih Bapak Ibu semua. Selamat pagi. Izin Pak WR, Prof. Adian, Pak Suwondo, Bu Linda, Bapak Ibu dosen, Bapak Ibu peneliti, Bapak Ibu mahasiswa. Terima kasih banyak atas sesi hari ini. Kami sangat senang dari Elsevier akan memberikan berbagi kepada Bapak Ibu semua tentang materi kami hari ini tentang writing a great paper and also getting it published. Bapak Ibu, for today's session, it will be conducted in English. However, if Bapak Ibu have questions, please type it, or like maybe you can also raise a hand at the end. Feel free Bapak Ibu kalau ingin menanyakan dalam bahasa Indonesia juga tidak masalah. I will translate to the speakers and we will discuss it along the way. Okay, I think I will just give it to Nicholas for presentation, maybe around like 60 or 70 minutes, and then we will follow up with the discussion after that. Nick?
Thanks a lot, Dito. Much appreciation. Give me a second and let me know if you can see my slides. Great. It's been a pleasure to actually do this session over back with UNDIP. I was here probably about 7-8 years ago, actually, and actually did an author workshop directly here at UNDIP. So it's nice to see everyone here again. My name is Nicholas. I'm the Customer Success Team Manager for South Asia and Southeast Asia. And today I'll be walking you through on how you can write a great paper and how you can get it published. I'll give you a quick introduction with regards to what Elsevier actually does. We'll go through the manuscript preparation process. We'll talk you through about the publication process as well as the editor's point of view. We'll highlight a little bit about research integrity and publishing ethics. We'll talk to you about Elsevier and AI, and we'll spotlight Researcher Academy, which is a resource that you can leverage on as well over here in UNDIP. But before we start, right, I just want to see a show of hands. How many of you are familiar with Elsevier? Can you raise your hands on Zoom? Okay, so a couple of hands, all right? Okay, let me walk you through essentially on the scholarly publishing process first so that you're familiar with it. It all really started in 1439 with the Gutenberg press and the movable type. And that was actually when we were actually able to start automating printing the printing of publications, right, in an automated fashion. Before that, publications were all written by hand and by script, so you can imagine that it would take a lot of time. With the Gutenberg press, that meant that everything was able to be expedited and information was made to be shared. The House of Elsevier was founded in 1580, and Henry Oldenburg was the first founding editor and the commercial publisher of the first scientific journal. And it was only in 1665 that the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society, which was the first true scholarly journal, was actually published. How the journal, and before we go on further, right, I always like sharing this information with everyone because I think the journal and article ecosystem is a very fundamental and also very crucial step in sharing of scientific peer-reviewed information, even more so in this day and age, in the age of AI, right? How Elsevier really works is that we have approximately about 3,000 journal brands where we solicit and manage submissions in terms of articles from. It's very crucial that we manage the peer review process, right? And we don't just simply accept in any article. As of 2025, in 2025 itself, we had about 4.2 million article submissions, which is a phenomenally large number. and we publish approximately about 800,000 published articles, which is about less than 20%, right? So when people say, over in Elsevier, you reject articles all the time, I would say, not really. We just reject maybe about 80%. This is the care that we take in terms of receiving articles, managing these articles, sending them for peer reviews, preparing them before we actually publish them, which is why it's actually also crucial and we are able to articulate the impact of our articles. We work with approximately about 37,000 editors, with over 105,000 editorial board members and across reaching out to 1.9 million reviewers itself. We then subsequently edit and prepare the manuscript. We'll publish and disseminate it, and we have approximately about over 2.9 billion articles that were being downloaded in 2025. And within our archivals, we have over 24 million articles. I always like showing people this because we can see how from 2016, when I first joined Elsevier, to 2025, we have a compound annual growth rate of about 12% in terms of submissions. This is a very large number, right? And I think it's also crucial for us to articulate the acceptance rate and the growth rate of the actual published articles has grown by 7%, right? Of approximately about 795,000 articles in 2025 itself. Elsevier and correspondingly Science Direct is the world's leading research platform with global reach and scale. We have about 130 million monthly visits since 2019, over 700,000 searches per day, reaching up to over 20 million monthly researchers, with over 90 article views per second and about 2.9 billion articles consumed every year. And one of the things that we always pay very close attention to is that we need to understand what the market requires. What is it that our community needs? And one of the things that we have observed is that research output growth has grown continuously on a global perspective. The market growth has averaged about 3.5% annually since 2013. And it's so important that Elsevier keeps track of this and we are able to actually deliver not more than what the market is rolling out. China has become a very huge research nation, not just in quantity, but also in quality. We also have new business models emerging with open access or when people pay to publish, which we support in addition to our legacy model in terms of journal subscriptions. Open science trends would mean that research is more inclusive, collaborative, and transparent. And this also changes and tweaks customer needs and perception of how we can add value to the market. The rise of predatory publishing, right, where quality cannot always be trusted as a side effect of the transition to open access business model is also very real and which is something that we have to continuously monitor as well. Along the way, we have 4 key elements that we'd like to share with you in terms of our publishing strategy. We want to reflect the community of the researchers that we serve and we support. And we always want to make sure that we can offer equitable publication opportunities. So what we publish reflects the diversity of the communities which we are supporting. We want to build trust and to ensure that our customers have an enjoyable experience. And we want to make sure that in terms of the author level, you can get a superior and trustworthy process in terms of the author, reviewer, and editor experience from submission to publication and to beyond. We also want to make sure that we are connected and effective organization with empowered talents leveraging their skills and talents to support the community. And we also want to be a trusted partner, right? We definitely want to make sure that all our journals publish trusted content and are able to be thought leaders in terms of research integrity and publication ethics, standards, and practices. So let's talk quickly about manuscript preparation, because that's a key thing of what we need to do. Before we start, the question always boils down to, are you actually ready to publish yet? And before that, you need to do a cost-benefit analysis, right? You need to identify, do you actually have a strong story where you want to share original, meaningful insights? Do you have clear, reliable, irrefutable evidence that you can demonstrate? You need to focus your work into one strong contribution before you can actually publish it. Then the other thing that you also need to do is that you need to identify the right audience. You need to reach readers who will be able to value your research. You need to consider local and global relevance in terms of research. And you also need to identify a journal which fits your work. By identifying a strong manuscript and a strong story, and by publishing it in the right journal, you'll be able to target the right audience. And this actually helps you to share your contribution with confidence. And this begets the question, what is and what comprises of a strong manuscript? A strong manuscript has a clear, useful, and exciting message that you're willing to share, you're ready to share with your readers and your research community, right? It has to be clear, it needs to be understandable, it needs to have a strong functionality, it needs to have a strong contribution, and it's something that is on the cusp of breaking science and research that would help everyone. That's not the most important part, but it's very important. The other important part that you also need to do is that you need to present and to construct your arguments in a clear, logical manner where the reviewers and the editors and your research community can understand and grasp the significance of this groundbreaking research easily, right? You also need to bear in mind that editors and reviewers, they are active scientists. So you want to make things easy to save their time. It's very important that you're able to choose the right journal for you to publish in. So over in Elsevier, we have leveraged on large language model technologies for a long time now. Journal Finder is one of them. So I would recommend you to actually go to journalfinder.elsevier.com, and this would actually help you to connect your research with the right audience, right? What you need to do is that you need to put in your title, your abstract, and your keywords, and you'll be able to discover journals which are aligned to your topic and your field. You can compare options using key metrics and scope, and you can use it to make a more informed choice. You can explore the journal fit, the journal impact, and the review timelines, and you can select the journal that best supports your work. So when you're writing a scientific paper, right, you need to start with a strong foundation. You need to keep asking yourself questions, and I'll always encourage you to put yourself in the shoes of the editor, the reviewer, and your own audience, right? Define your main message and research questions clearly and succinctly. Also organize your key findings. Use figures and tables to shape your story to articulate this as well. You need to also always bear in mind that when you're reading a manuscript, you start from introduction, abstract, etc. But what you really need to do is you need to start with the data first, right? You need to organize the data, you need to organize the findings, and you need to use this as the crux of the story that you're telling. Subsequently, you need to draft and then to refine your messaging. Write your first draft quickly, and the focus is in terms of clarity and not perfection. Read it once, review the first draft, and then start thinking to yourself, how do you want to improve the structure and the message, right? Different people have different styles, right? And this is just one of the styles that we can recommend. We want you to put this down so that you can understand what is it you're trying to tell. Do you need to rearrange it? Is your messaging clear? Then read this draft from your reader's perspective. You can strengthen your manuscript now by checking and reading it and to make sure that your message is clear. And you can get the feedback from some of your trusted partners and readers and colleagues as well. Get their feedback to see what it is that you can improve upon writing your paper. Language matters, right? You need to take responsibility for your writing. You need to make sure that your manuscript is clear before submission. I would say that in terms of grammatical errors, be very careful with it. Very often our editors would say that if the abstract has over maybe about 10 grammatical errors, stop reading it, because it just shows that you're not taking care to make sure that your manuscript is written properly, right? So make sure that your manuscript is clear, is error-free, and you can use available tools and support when needed. Please use language that's easy to follow, right? Write in short and direct sentences. Focus on one idea at a time. Sometimes we might overcomplicate things. Don't do that, right? We will always recommend you to keep it short and simple and sweet. Make sure that you write your sentences in maybe about 12 to 17 words per sentence. Make sure that it's one idea at a time, right? Don't conflict multiple ideas in a long, rambly sentence. Then that makes things much more complicated and people cannot follow. We also want you to use your tense consistently, present for context and established methods, past for methods and results, and a mix for discussion. Write with clarity and with confidence. This is everyone's favorite in terms of manuscript structure. We talk about the title, the abstracts, and the keywords. That is actually the header of the manuscript and the article. This is important, right? Because the title, abstract, and keywords helps to optimize us in terms of indexing and searching. You're keeping the research article informative, attractive, and effective in that sense. Subsequently, that's the main body of it, right? IMRAD, the introduction, methods, results, and discussions. You want to make your article concise. Sometimes it's it's not as straightforward as it is. It's complicated because at the end of the day, you still need to make sure, you need to ensure that your article is within 10,000 words. Your reader's time is scarce, right? So you want to make sure that you're able to get to the point, right, in a succinct fashion, but at the same time, clear, thorough, and also detailed. And the end of it would include your conclusion, the acknowledgements, the references, and the supplementary data that you want to include. Going from the top, for the headers, the title and abstract is very crucial, right? The title is, you have to be clear, concise, informative, and also intriguing at the same time when it comes to the title, because this will help to reflect your research accurately, and it helps readers to also understand your work better. The abstract is crucial because it summarizes what you did and what you have found. You want to make sure that people understand what you're trying to tell with regards from the abstract itself, and you want to be accurate, specific, and brief here. Your title and abstract will help others discover and to engage with your research. And it's also very much a spotlight for people when they're looking for articles in the very first place. Going on to the main body, the introduction and methods. Introduction would explain the problem and why it matters. It shows how your work will be able to build on existing research and want to make sure that your aim and contribution is very clear. The methods talk about how you've studied the problem. You want to talk about the detail needed for others to follow your approach. You need to make sure that your methods are reproducible and replicable. That's very crucial. You also want to reference established procedures and to identify key materials or equipment. A strong paper moves clearly from context to approach, and this is where the introduction and methods is a very important bridge to do so. The results and discussions where you want to showcase, right, the impact and what you have done for your research. Show what you have found by highlighting your main findings very clearly. You want to use figures and tables to present data effectively. At the same time, you want to make the visuals easy to understand on their own so people understand at a glance what your data is telling. You want to use visuals with purpose, where you include only essential data. Please avoid repeating the same information in text and in figures. You want to make sure that your charts and your tables are simple and easy to read. The discussion is where we have to explain what it means. You need to interpret your results in context. You need to compare this with existing research, and you may also want to discuss limitations and implications. The strong papers will move from clear results to meaningful insight. You want to talk about the results, but at the same time, you also want to show how the data is derived from and what it showcases. Conclusion is crucial because you want to show what the data and what your work has meant. So you want to summarize your key findings very clearly. You want to show how your work has actually advanced and grown the field. And you can also talk about the study implications and the future directions of where your research may be headed towards. The references would support your contribution. You take this opportunity to cite the most relevant and important work that you have been based it off. You want to also use sources that you fully understand. At the same time, right, this is the part where you need to use the formatting and following the journal submission guidelines. A strong conclusion and references reinforce the value of your research by articulating what you've come to a summary to, right? You have basically talked about the data, you've talked about the findings, you're trying to solve this research question, and this is where it culminates in terms of a summary, in terms of what you have actually done. Before your submission, you want to consider the following. You want to take a final look where you can review your manuscript carefully. You want to make sure that your message is clear and complete. And you want to also read the journal's guide for all authors and to check all requirements. Make sure that you actually read it, you're able to understand it, you get to understand how it will be perceived, and you want to make sure that the message that you're trying to tell, the research question that you're trying to tackle, is answered and is complete. I will always guide you to actually leverage on the journals. Within Elsevier, we have a journal guide. I will show this to you as well later if you're not sure where to find it. Go to the journal homepage, look at the aim and scopes of the journal, download the guide for authors, because this is where we actually stipulate all the requirements that we need you to go through and to complete before you submit it. But before that, also to get a fresh perspective in terms of your manuscript preparation, ask colleagues or supervisors for their feedback and use their input to strengthen your work itself. By getting an insight from them, you're not just only looking at it from one point of view, you're able to also get their point of view to get better contextualization. And then once all this is done in terms of the preparation, in terms of the groundwork that you've put in terms of the first initial draft, the first draft, second and third draft that you've done, then submit with confidence. Send your manuscript through with a cover letter. And the cover letter is very important because it allows you to speak to the editors and the readers of the manuscript directly. You use this opportunity to declare any conflicts of interest that you may have, and you can take the next step in terms of sharing your research. So, the other thing which I also want to put into perspective, is to highlight the publication process so that you know how the manuscript is being processed and the editor's point of view, so that you know what you can do better based from an editor's perspective. So when you're looking at publishing models itself, you can consider a few things. We talked initially about how the global publishing models are like in terms of subscription journals. Subscription journals are the traditional classical models where you can publish without an author fee. The access is provided through institutional or personal subscriptions. Open access journals is a different type of model where the research is available for all readers. But in this case, the publication is supported by an article publishing charge, which is incurred by the author himself or herself. What this means is that the author would have to actually pay an APC charge for everyone to be able to read the journals themselves, That's something that we do. There's different open access routes where gold, the article is immediate and permanently open, or green, where a version of the article is shared after an embargo period. So it's also important that you learn how to identify the right model because this would help your research to reach the right audience. So this in terms of a business model. The other thing that I will also highlight and emphasize is that you should also consider which journal is it that your journal community or your research community actually reads. And then you decide, do I need to pay to make it free and available for everyone to read? Or should I just publish without an author fee? Because there'll be institutions that will provide subscriptions for all of the readers, You need to do this analysis yourself. The peer review system is something I would like to also highlight in terms, and I think it's crucial in terms of understanding how the manuscript publication process works. The peer review happens when your manuscript is evaluated by experts within your scientific field. And the reviewers will need to assess the quality, the validity, and the relevance of your research. It's very important, Because without the peer review, how is anyone to ascertain what you're submitting is accurate, there's contribution or otherwise? It's very important because it ensures the quality, the validity, and the originality of your research article and manuscripts. Through expert feedback, there will be comments to help you improve your manuscript, and it crucially protects the integrity of scientific research. Once again, this is very important. In a day and era where there's a lot of misinformation, you don't know whether what you're reading is accurate or otherwise. These are the steps that are in place, to make sure that academic research is actually robust. You can actually trust and rely on the content that you're reading. And by leveraging on this, you're able to use this to build on your research as well. How this entire process works is that the editor would select independent reviewers. You will receive feedback and you can subsequently revise your manuscript, and a final decision is made based on the reviews that you have received. The peer review process, helps you to strengthen your research before publication, before it goes out to your research community. There are three key editorial decisions and process that we have to go through in place. Firstly, in terms of rejection, this is a common outcome for many submissions. And as you're aware, Elsevier rejects maybe about over 80% of submissions. But I would say rather than to just accept it as a rejection, take it in a constructive manner. The feedback that you receive will help you to improve your work. So that don't just simply accept that, oh, it's a rejection, that's how it is. I will just submit my manuscript again to another publisher. Don't do it that way. Make sure the feedback helps you to improve your work, revise, and then consider submitting to another journal itself. Most manuscripts require revisions, right? It is very, 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 very seldom that a manuscript comes through without any comments. Very rare, and it's practically a unicorn. You should always address the reviewer comments carefully and respectfully, I would even say. You don't have to agree with everything that they say, right? And if you choose to not agree, you can politely say, this is why I disagree. You can consider this point of view, right? Also take this opportunity to strengthen the clarity, the structure, and the argument that you're putting forward. Acceptance is the final step after the successful revision, and your articles will move from production to production and publication. The editorial decisions will help to guide you to produce a stronger final paper, and this is also very crucial. There are probably about two major revision types in general. Major revision, where significant changes are needed, and this may involve the restructuring and additional analysis or new data to put into, right? Address all comments carefully and respectfully before resubmitting this. Minor revision shows that the manuscript is close to acceptance, but it's not a guarantee that it will still be accepted, right? You still need to make the changes. You require clarification or small improvements, and the focus should be in terms of accuracy, clarity, and completeness in terms of the revision. It's important to keep in mind, right? And you need to address every reviewer comment clearly. Minor revision doesn't guarantee acceptance, and careful revisions would actually increase your chance of success. So rather than think of it as being critical, think of it as constructive. Revisions are an opportunity to strengthen your paper. And it's actually what leads to acceptance, right? It's a strong contribution. Your manuscript needs to be clear, it needs to be original, and it needs to be relevant to your field. You need to have robust evidence in terms of reliable data and sound methodology and replicability as well. The data would have to tell the value in terms of your research, and you need to present this in a clear and logical structure, which is easy to follow and is also very well organized. A high-quality presentation with clear language and strong visuals makes the reviewer and editor's life easier. It also means that it's easier and more palatable, I would even say, for your audience to consume the research that you're putting forward. And last but not least, you need to have ethical and responsible research, which follows strong publishing and research ethical standards. Strong manuscripts, robust manuscripts, right, combine clarity of thought, strong research clarity, and research integrity, and you should never forget this. From an editor's point of view, because the essential process is that your manuscript arrives at the editor first, and they will have to do an editor desk check. What they will have to look at first will be in terms of our title and abstract. Is the topic clear? Is it relevant? Does it make sense for the journal itself? Is the research meaningful and interesting for the journal, right? So the title and abstract is very important here. And then upon the next stage, the second one would be for them to investigate in terms of the introduction. Is the research question clear? Do I understand what the researcher and the author here is trying to solve? Is there a real gap in the field that it will be able to resolve as well? Editors will need to assess whether or not the paper will fit the journal scope before you can consider clarity and relevance. And this is why it's also important for you to go to the journal guidelines, the journal homepage, assess the journal's aims and scope, and then you need to tailor and tweak your journal to fit the aims and scope. It's very much like submitting a CV for a job application, right? You need to understand what the job is looking for, and then you need to adjust your fit accordingly, right? So always to get this in mind. The next stage that you need to do is to evaluate, the editors would need to do is to evaluate the paper content via figures and data. Are the data visuals clear, accurate, and easy for me to understand? Does this data also support the main findings effectively and accurately, right? So from a author perspective, you need to make sure that this is something that you need to articulate and to reinforce. You need to pay very close attention as to how you present your data. Your x-axis and y-axis need to make sense. Your data spread needs to make sense. You need to make sure that you're extrapolating the right perspective as well, right? Make sure that your guidelines in terms of your axes are clear and structured and clearly sequenced as well. And then from this data, you're able to extrapolate and tell an effective and impactful story. With the results and discussion, you need to see, are the results presented clearly and logically? Does the discussion here explain their significance in terms of the result? Are you able to have a discussion? Are you able to come up with a summary, etc.? With the references, you need to make sure that your sources are relevant and up to date. It needs to be updated. It needs to be recent. You need to make sure that you're able to showcase through breadth and depth, as well as recency in terms of how you're reading and leveraging in terms of the literature review, right? Do they position the work within the field? Is it relevant to the field? You want to make sure that you're able to showcase strong evidence and clear interpretation, that you know what it is that you're doing, you're writing about, with a clear knowledge in terms of the gap in the research which your paid manuscript and research is addressing, right? This will help to drive the editorial decisions. How you can respond to reviewers is that you want to be clear and structured. You want to address each comment individually, explain what you have changed and where you have changed this. Be very specific, right? Refer to the page or line numbers where it's relevant, and you want to avoid general or vague responses. You want to be constructive and professional. You want to accept feedback where appropriate, and you want to provide clear, evidence-based responses. Even if you disagree, and you can disagree, make sure that you respond politely and respectfully, right? You want to be constructive and appear professional as you're addressing these manuscript revisions. But I would say take the revision process very, very seriously. Use the feedback that has been consolidated and collated to improve your manuscript, because careful revisions would really increase your chances of its acceptance. So, for instance, right, from lab to paper, let's share with you a perspective in terms of it. And this is an honest account of what publishing in science, technology, engineering, and medicine really looks like from an experiment to acceptance, right? So I would say plan for 2 to 3 failed cycles per major result, because each failure that doesn't happen would narrow your hypothesis, and it strengthens and becomes a legitimate methods material, right? For instance, a study on heterogeneous catalyst design ran 3 failed synthesis routes, and those failures explain why the final formulation was novel. It's never going to be successful on the first time, right? You need to accept that. You need to accept that failure is really the mother of success. It failed once, fails twice, fails a third time. Then you stumble upon it maybe a 4th time, a 5th time, or 6th time, right? Be very patient with it. But throughout the entire process, you need to document the conditions in real time. Notebooks are the raw material of your methods section. You need to wait until the submission means forgotten parameters, unproducible results, and reviewer rejections on technical grounds. Make sure that you are able to document all this and you're able to create something that is replicable and reproducible. And then also talk with your supervisor early on. Check with them what single sentence describes what this paper proves. In chemical engineering, a focused contribution, a new catalyst, a process improvement, or a separation breakthrough could beat a fragmented multi-story submission, right? So be very clear and concise with what is the issue you're trying to solve. This is from a lab perspective. Then to the writing challenge, the writing perspective, right? You need to build around your 5 to 6 strongest figures first, because they are the crux of your story. Write the narrative to connect them and not the other way around, right? Don't connect them and then you force them into a narrative. The figures submitted to reviewers should be read before the abstract. Now, frame it from what you have done, because that's very common. You think to talk about, okay, I did this and this and this. Don't put it this way. Talk about what is the problem that you actually have solved now, right? So the draft is that we synthesize a new catalyst, but the draft is we address a critical bottleneck in low temperature carbon dioxide conversion efficiency for industrial scale carbon capture, right? So this is the better way to produce it. And you need to think about it from the perspective of a reader. When they're trying to read, they need to understand what is the problem that they're looking for, right? The other thing that you can also do is that you can use Journal Finder to finalize your framing. The same database can fit chemical engineering journals, a different type of journal, applied catalysis, or green chemistry, depending on how you frame the contribution. The title, abstract, and keywords are read 100 times, more than the full text. So make sure that you invest time to talk about the title, abstract, and keywords in a way that makes sense. For the review experience, right, desk rejection happens 50 to 95% of STEM submissions. It signals scope mismatch, not necessarily poor quality, right? So don't just revise the paper first. Revise the paper for the target journal. Reframe your contribution and resubmit, and this is completely normal. Treat each reviewer comment as free expert advice to improve your manuscript. A request for missing characterization is a gift, right? The experiment may yet be your strongest result. A chemical engineering case would demand difference in surface area and TPL data to be the paper's headline finding instead. Now, write your response letter like a second paper. Restate each comment that we've gone through, show the new data, cite the exact page in the revised manuscript, right? You can say, we disagree because, and we need to require evidence and not just simply baseless assertion. So the one thing that I would say is that publishing is a skill you build and it's honed through constant practice and thoughtful decision-making, right? It's not a talent that you're born with. All of this is not natural, right? But what you need to bear in mind is that you're improving your ability to have dialogues with your research community, with your readers. Think about it. And it's challenging, right? Because being a researcher means that you not only do you have to come up with innovative and problem solving, but you also need to articulate the way you have problem solved in a way that makes sense so that people understand what you're trying to solve for them. Every published STEM paper starts with the same uncertainty that you feel now, right? And it's okay. It's all right to be uncertain, but the best thing, and I would say the mother of all successes, really boils down to preparation. So prepare. Ask yourself a lot of questions. Ask your supervisor and your colleagues and your peers all the questions that you need to do, right? Know that you will fail, and you'll fail very often, right? But it's important to know that you need to fail and fail well. When you fail well, when you're able to take constructive comments and feedback, this is where it all gets better, right? Because you're able to take on a glass half full perspective. You're able to say, okay, I've done this and this, but I need to do this and this better, right? So take this across the lab reality in terms of the writing challenge and the review experience itself. These are three of the key pillars that you will tend to face itself, but you need to constantly hone and you'll be able to, in that case, right, this allows you to put your best foot forward in terms of your research manuscript. So maybe what I would say is that let's test what I've gone through with some of the scenarios here in this case, right? So Dr. Sarah is a chemical engineering researcher. She has developed a novel bimetallic catalyst for low temperature carbon dioxide hydrogenation. The lab results will show maybe about 42% higher methanol yield at the current state of art. But she only has bench scale reactor data. There's no pilot scale or techno-economic validation yet, right? So her supervisor advised, the results are excellent. Just submit it to Nature Catalysis and let the reviewers decide if it's good enough. Should Dr. Sarah follow this advice? So maybe take just a quick minute to go through this question and I'll show you the answers in a bit. And the answer is probably not, and this is why. Because nature catalysis targets landmark mechanistic or conceptual catalyst advances and not through incremental yield improvements, right? So the benchmark data with no pilot validation or mechanistic insight is unlikely to clear the desk review at an 8% acceptance rate. What you might consider doing is to find other journals that may be a better fit, like Chemical Engineering Journal, Applied Catalysis B, where the process engineers and industrial chemists would use this work, would actually be reading and publishing it in. So choosing a good journal to publish in is so important because it really helps you to save time. It helps you to reduce rejection rates as well. So maybe what you want to do is what other additional experiments, right, like pilot scale data or mechanistic study or stability testing will strengthen the impact claim for a higher tier journal. How would you reframe this paper for a chemical engineering process audience versus a fundamental chemistry and catalysis audience itself? Journal fit at the end of the day is a strategic decision and not just a prestige one, right? Bear that in mind. Sometimes the names sound good and it's really exciting, but you need to bear that in mind that everyone needs to take baby steps forward, right? You don't just go into landmark journal straight away. For chemical engineering researchers, the right journal is where the people are the ones who could use your work in terms of process engineers, industrial chemists, scale-up specialists they actually read. A 42% yield improvement is actually huge, right? And it's transformative for industrial carbon capture, but needs process level framing to resonate beyond fundamental catalysis. The other part, and a very important thing that I also want to talk about now, would be in terms of research integrity and publishing ethics. The reason why this is important is that we face a huge research integrity issue in this day and age. There's a lot of AI, right? There's also a lot of predatory publishing. People were asking about how AI works, and it's important that we need to articulate how AI can be best leveraged in the best possible way, right? At the end of the day, and also crucially, right, in Indonesia, I know that there's a huge predatory publishing issue and challenge that we are facing. What we need to do is we need to support you so that you can improve the trust in research. And it goes both ways, right? For trust in research to happen, we need to ensure that findings are reliable and transparent so that you're able to build confidence in published work itself. The integrity of science is crucial because it protects the scientific record and it prevents misconduct such as plagiarism or data manipulation. And this also boils down to the responsibility in terms of authors to report research honestly and accurately, where you can follow ethical standards in terms of publications and authorship. Ethics is crucial, especially in research, because it underpins credible and impactful research. So key ethical risks that we want to highlight is in terms of plagiarism, where we use other people's works without proper attribution, and this includes text, data, and images. You can also include data falsification as well, where you manipulate or misrepresent results, and this includes selective reporting or image changes. You need to be careful in terms of duplicate submission because we don't encourage you, and it's actually a very big no-no to submit the same manuscript to more than one journal at a time, right? Because what happens if your manuscripts gets accepted by multiple journals at the same time? Then you need to retract it, and then people will find out how and why this is occurring. So don't do that. Never ever duplicate submissions as well. Conflicts of interest is important that you need to highlight too. What happens when you don't disclose relationships that may influence the research? What happens if there are financial, professional, or even personal conflicts of interest, right? So it's crucial and imperative that you address this risk because it helps you to protect the integrity of your research. Responsible publishing practices would include you to follow and adhere to authorship rules, where you include only contributors who meet authorship criteria. You should also be very transparent, where you can disclose conflict of interest and you can report methods and data honestly and transparently. You need to follow journal policies, where you adhere to submission and ethical guidelines, and you also need to use AI close use where required. Responsible AI practices will evolve, including on how we can use AI in research. As an author, what you need to do is that you need to always bear in mind that you need to make a substantial contribution to the work's conception and design, or acquisition of data, analysis, and interpretation. As an author, you need to be involved in drafting or revising the manuscript for important intellectual content. You need to approve the final version of the work, and you take responsibility for all aspects of it. You can also acknowledge instead contributors with limited or technical support and those who did the work early. And you need to agree on authorship very early on. You need to define the roles and the author order at the very start. The editor will not consider changes to authorship after submission, and you want to do this as early as possible so you can minimize and avoid misunderstandings later, right? Clear authorship supports transparency and trust. Sometimes you also want to be very careful with regards to give authorship, right? We don't do that. If you want to acknowledge people who help, you can put them in the acknowledgement section. So for instance, a research group at another institution would want to invite Dr. Chen to be a co-author in an article that they are currently preparing for publication. Dr. Chen learns that the group has already conducted the research and written the article, but the group would like to just offer Dr. Chen a co-author position as a gift, as she is a senior leader in the field. Should Dr. Chen accept? So take a quick, maybe 10 seconds to go through this scenario. And the answer here is actually no, right? Because this is considered gift authorship and is considered unethical. Not disclosing authors who meet the authorship criteria or ghost authorship, similarly, is also unethical. Another example and case that we can run through is that Susie is a researcher who works collaboratively with a group that writes many such papers. Susie is only working on some aspects of the research, and a supervisor has asked her to edit an article in an area where she has not conducted research. She does extensive language edits to make the paper sound a lot more professional, and should Susie therefore be listed as an author? This is in terms of language editing. And the answer is no. She should not be listed as an author, because authors, they need to contribute to the work's conception, design, execution, or interpretation, or to be able to take full responsibility for the work. Language editing, even extensive language editing, does not merit authorship. But what the authors should do is to acknowledge Susie's editing contributions within the acknowledgements. Then also ask yourself, which of the following is true about the corresponding author of a manuscript? A, the corresponding author handles communication about the article before and after publication. B, the corresponding author should be listed as the first author. C, the corresponding author is also the most senior author. D, all of the above. And the answer is A. The corresponding author handles communication about the article before and after publication. While they can be the first author or sometimes a senior author from the institution, this is not necessarily always the case. And in some fields, it is unusual for the corresponding author to appear listed first. Remember, the authorship and the order of authors should be agreed upon before the original submission of the paper. So here's one more quiz for you, right? I know I'm asking you guys a lot of questions to go through, but I think this is a good way for you guys to learn. Dr. Smith has written an article about a clinical topic that is very familiar to him. He received funding from a pharmaceutical company 2 years ago to write about a topic, but he has not received funding for this specific article. Does Dr. Smith have to disclose this previous funding? Yes or no? And the answer is simple. It's actually yes. Authors must disclose research support, including financial and non-financial assistance, with a vested interest in the work, as well as related work or relationships within the last 3 years between an author and a third party that may have an interest in the manuscript, right? And the other thing that I will also say is that Elsevier has developed a step-by-step declarations tool to help authors through the process of preparing well-considered and ICMJE compliance statements. So please use it as well. You heard me mention earlier, right, pertaining to AI, that AI is a very nascent, very important thing to consider in this day and age. And I think this is something that everyone is facing. And what I'd like to share with you is that In 2025, right, in August to September, Elsevier's research, we created a Researcher of the Future report, which draws on insights from over 3,200 researchers across 113 countries. We know that AI adoption is accelerating. 58% now use AI at work, which is an increase of about 21% from 2024 itself. But there's still gaps. 45% feel undertrained, and only 32% rate institutional AI governance as wrong. Right. So we know AI adoption in research has surged, 58% using it for work, which is up by 21% points. And the question is, how do we move on from here? And if you have more interest in this particular research report, please feel free to download the Researcher of the Future PDF. We have it available for you for free. So how are researchers currently using AI, right? 61% use it to find and summarize the latest research. 41% use it to draft grant proposals. 51% use it to perform literature reviews. 38% draft research papers or reports, and 38% use it to analyze research data. And the question is, the race against time in pushing researchers to use readily available AI tools is for efficiency, but it's what costs, right? And AI can sound authoritative, but in science, authority is earned and not generated. Some of the researchers, the pain points that they face is that the diversity of the tools using AI is huge, but you have no idea which is actually a valuable one, right? 86% believe AI tools could cause critical errors or mishaps. 22% only believe that AI tools are trustworthy. 1 in 4 feel AI could devalue in their work, and 58% of them, of the researchers whom we surveyed, use them specifically for work. So how do we align and how do we balance this challenge itself? The first important thing, right, is that general purpose AI tools are not fit for research. There's a lack of transparency, right? There are black boxes. You don't know where the citations are coming from. Some of these AI tools will produce literature reviews with 50% hallucinations, citations being hallucinations or having errors. There could be posts that's presented as legitimate sources because AI is not able to discern from it. And you have retracted research rated as word leading, right? So it's very important that you can't just use AI wholesale. You need a critical element in terms of human insight. But the other key thing you need to also bear in mind is that by leveraging on this entirely, it erodes critical thinking. There will be inflated user trust regardless of the accuracy. There's an illusion of authoritativeness that people take for granted, and there's potential for bias towards an agreement in responses. We also face a challenge in terms of privacy and security issues pertaining to AI, with a widespread use of about 58% using it for their work, with user inputs being used to train models by ensuring security, privacy, and handling of confidential information. All of these things, right, means that general purpose AI challenges and is kind of like a research risk. So one of the key things I would even say, right, is that we have Elsevier's policy for authors, editors, and reviewers in terms of generative AI. When used responsibly and with human oversight, Elsevier supports the use of AI tools by authors, including AI agents and deep research tools to synthesize literature, identify research gaps, to generate ideas, and to assist with content structure and language policy. But one thing that you definitely need to note, right, that AI is not a substitute for human critical thinking. Authors are responsible and accountable for the content of the manuscript, including accountability for thorough reviewing and verifying the accuracy of the AI-generated output. At the end of the day, right, you're responsible for your own research manuscript. You're accountable for it. You need to review and to verify the accuracy of the output. You can't just simply take it for granted, right? You can't take it wholesale. You need to make sure that you're able to edit and adapt the material to ensure that the paper represents your own authentic and original contribution. You need to make sure that you're doing the work to ensure this. And you should also disclose the use of AI upon your submission, and a statement will be placed in the published article for transparency. You also need to ensure data privacy, IP, and other rights by checking the terms and conditions of any AI tool that you choose to use. We recently updated our AI policy in September 2025 to reflect how AI is advancing to support authors in a safe and responsible use case. And if you're interested to find out more about our AI policies for journals, you'll find a couple of links here that you can basically peruse through as well. In terms of for our editors and reviewers, You should not upload the manuscript into an AI tool. Don't do that. Never do that, right? Because this would violate confidentiality and the author's rights. You should also not upload peer review reports or editorial decision letters because they may contain confidential information as well. Generative AI should not be used in the review, evaluation, or decision-making process. And this is something that we place very huge emphasis on as well. Don't use generative AI to create or to alter images in submitted manuscripts. The only exception is where the use of Gen AI or AI-assisted tools is part of the research design or research methods. The use of Gen AI or AI-assisted tool in terms of the production of artwork is not permitted, but may be in exceptional cases to be allowed for as cover art. So some of our policies will include no AI-generated visuals. Don't use AI to create or to alter the images. It applies to all submitted visuals and figures. There's limited exceptions, which is allowed if it's only part of the research method and it must be clearly described and justified. In terms of artwork restrictions, AI tools are not permitted for artwork production, but it may be allowed in exceptional cases like cover art, because visual integrity is also very essential to trustworthy research. In short, Elsevier's generative AI policies will focus on responsible use of generative AI. For authors, it needs to emphasize responsible use and the need for disclosure. In terms of adaptability and alignment, we will align with other organizations to provide uniform guidelines. We monitor ongoing developments in the area very closely, and we will adjust or refine the policies as appropriate. We have to protect our authors' rights because our policies for editors and reviewers focuses on protecting author confidentiality and data privacy rights. And we need to make sure that we are able to receive feedback and to answer questions. So our 5 key AI principles that you can find that's updated recently would be that we consider the real-world impact of our solutions on people. We take very close action to prevent the creation or the reinforcement of unfair bias. We are able to explain how our solutions work. We create accountability through human oversight. We respect privacy and we champion robust data governance. For more than a decade, right? Elsevier has been using AI and large language models and machine learning technologies in our services and products to help researchers discover and apply trusted knowledge. We've been doing this actually for a long time. And one of the key things when I've spoken to different people, different leaders within Elsevier, right, would be we have a trusted core of knowledge. What we've been trying to do is to improve the efficiency and efficacy in terms of the distribution of our knowledge. And this is where the technologies such as machine learning, large language models, AI have been very useful for. I met with a couple of our editors a few years ago, and some of the things which they really love that we are able to do is that we are able to leverage on our core of trusted knowledge to basically suggest some of the people and the researchers who could be peer reviewers for a particular manuscript as well. This helps them with the peer review process, and that's not the only use case that we do have, but it's an example of some of the cases that we've been using and providing for our community for a long time. For editors, AI would support the reviewer selection, the scope matching, and duplicate submission detection, right? For authors, we provide tools like Journal Finder and Article Transfer Service to help identify suitable journals and alternate publication options. For the in-house teams, AI helps with technical checks, research integrity checks, and post-acceptance tasks, such as proof preparation and copy editing. For researchers and clinicians, we have developed AI-powered solutions across our platforms, such as LeapSpace, such as Clinical Key AI to support discovery, synthesis, and evidence-based decision-making. We are very committed to ensure that human judgment remains at the core of our decision-making process. Our AI solutions are used and designed to support and reinforce critical thinking, helping experts to make informed decisions and not replacing their expertise, right? Alongside supporting the editorial processes, we have developed AI tools specifically for researchers. And then the question becomes, what should researchers expect from AI that is built for research? Before we go on further, I actually want to share with you a tool, a platform that you can leverage on called Researcher Academy, right? This is a free e-learning platform for researchers. And Elsevier has provided clear, actionable guidance across each and every stage of the research journey. This will help you to build your skills, allow you to publish with confidence, and to promote your work. And is content developed by experts and is aligned with the publication cycle. There's an integrated learning experience from preparation to publication and recognition, and is connected with our broader tools, resources, and services. We highly encourage you to use this, right? We have about 800,000 annual unique visitors every year, with about 100,000 annual new registrants. And topics would range from, say, research preparation, writing for research, publication process, navigating the peer review, and communicating your research itself. So thank you so much. The 1 hour has gone by very quickly. And thank you so much for spending your time with me. I hope you found this session useful, and I'm very happy to take any questions that you may have as well. So over to you.
Thanks, Nicholas, for your presentation. It's really complete, it's really thorough. So I think I'll invite Bapak Ibu, if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your question in chat or just raise hand and then you can unmute yourself. Also, Bapak Ibu, silakan kalau pertanyaan dalam bahasa Indonesia, silakan saja, nanti akan saya translate ke dalam bahasa Inggris.
We have about 300 participants here. I'm sure some of you will have questions as well. Or if you have any questions pertaining to Elsevier in general, feel free to put them in the Q&A as well. Dito and I are here to support, and we'll be glad to assist you.
Silakan Bapak Ibu. Silakan Bapak Ibu yang ingin bertanya. Mungkin dari sisi penulisan, mungkin dari sisi tahapan publikasi, atau mungkin tadi ada yang masih belum clear, silakan Bapak Ibu. Karena terkadang kami masih mendapatkan pertanyaan bagaimana cara melakukan penulisan, bagaimana cara melakukan publikasi. So feel free, Bapak Ibu, if you have any questions. One question in chat, Nick. Do you want me to read
Yep.
or you can read yourself?
I can read it. So
Okay.
this is Aviva's question, and she wants to check if the article has reached the review stage and it's been revised according to the reviewer's notes but is still rejected, how can you ensure that your revisions are accepted? So let's go with this question first. I think first and foremost, if you have revised it accordingly, you need to ask yourself the questions, how is it that you have tackled? And in your note, right, you need to write a note addressing how you have actually made your changes based on the notes itself. And if it's being rejected, you need to probably ask, why is it that it's being rejected, right? Be very polite and respectful, but you also need to ask, why is it that has been rejected? That's very important. Speak to the journal editor itself. That's very important. That's crucial because you want to get constructive criticism pertaining to it, right? So that's one thing. Your second question is it advisable to submit the article to 2 different journals simultaneously to increase the chances of acceptance? Never, ever, ever, ever do that, right? I think I mentioned it earlier as well a couple of times. You should never, ever submit your article to 2 different journals, right? It doesn't work that way. It's unethical. So please submit it one at a time. The reason for this is simple, right? You might think that this is an efficient way, but if everyone thinks like you know, Elsevier has about 4.2 million submissions. If you were to submit it to like multiple journals in Elsevier's portfolio, this is good numbers going to go up to 8.4 to 12.6, right? This is not sustainable, not tenable for anyone. And when this happens, the whole process slows down dramatically. Peer reviewers will have to review it again and again and again, right? And which is why that we will reject this. So never ever actually do that, I would say. Be very patient. If you want to know what's the status of your submission, be patient and you can write a note politely to the editor and inquire what's going on, right? Maybe you're discouraged to do so, but please be patient. Yeah, because submitting it to multiple entries is a very unethical process. And also, it also begets a question. What happens when your manuscript is accepted in 2 of them? Someone has put in a very good question. How do you declare the use of AI in an article, assuming the usage complies with the permitted policies, and when the article should the declaration be made? This is a very excellent question. I have a very good answer for you, but you need to give me some time as I extract this for you. Give me a quick one. I will actually share this. I have a very good answer for this, but you need to give me time and I'll share it with Dito, and Dito can share it with everyone together with the presentation that I can share over shortly. But I would say that what you need to do is that you need to preface that certain elements has been used, it has been declared, and then you can put this in the references section or the declaration section itself. Let me see if I can find a good example in the meantime. Dito, if there's any other questions in the meantime as I'm searching for this, maybe you can let me know.
Yeah, I think while you are looking for the example of the declaration, actually the the question is coming in the chat.
Okay, I'll take a quick look in a minute. Oh, sorry, you need to help me with the question that is written in Bahasa.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no.
Okay.
All right, let me go for a nurse question first.
Yep.
What's the maximum word count and the minimum number of references required for the journal itself? I would say please go to the journal homepage. The journal homepage will give you a very good guidance. I think when it comes to word count, there's really no limit, but I would say maybe about 10 to 12,000 is usually the case. But once again, it depends on the journal to journal level. There's no minimum number of references or maximum number. You should use what is appropriate for your research manuscript in a way that's the robust, right? And it also depends on the subject area. So subject area will obviously depend. There's some subject areas which require more references, like medical sciences tend to get more references. Mathematical sciences tend to have less references, right? It really boils down to the domain itself. And after publication, are you allowed to upload the preprint and post-print versions of your article to repositories such as ResearchGate? So I would say definitely check the policies of the journal. They would tend to stipulate what you can do and what you can't do. So make sure that you check it accordingly based on the journal and the publisher of the journal that you are looking to publish in. So if someone has asked, if our writing is published in Elsevier at a significant financial cost to us, will we also benefit financially if someone cites our work? Or will Elsevier alone benefit but not the authors? So this one here is actually a very interesting question, and I will go back to the publishing model that you choose to opt in for, right? So if you choose to publish in a Go Open Access journal, right, that is the one that you obviously have to pay an article processing charge to. If you choose to publish in a journal subscription model, right, then you don't have to pay for anything, right? The difference is that do you want, and I think this is the crux of it, what is the best model for you to make sure that your article is being read? Because you can publish in a Go Open Access journal and you can pay an article processing charge, but if and that is free to read. But if no one is reading that journal from your research community, there is no point because they will not be citing your research article. On the contrary, if someone has to pay to read the subscription, right? But that is where all your research community is located and they refer to, then that journal makes more sense for you because that is where more people will be able to read, will be able to get reference to, and also to cite your article itself. That is more important, correct? So it boils down to what is your focus, what is your objective at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, my recommendation to you is not about what benefits Elsevier. My recommendation to you is what benefits yourself the most, right? Is it possible for your article to be read and for your research to be seen? Then you should choose to optimize that particular approach, right? Because at the end of the day, as a researcher, it's not just only about publishing, right? That's important. It's also to making sure that your research work contributes to the community. Your research work is being cited because that also helps you to impact yourself as a researcher. So that's probably my answer to you, Turades. Dito, I need you to help me with
Yeah,
Rohani's question,
it's
unfortunately.
okay. I will read all of the questions, so
Yeah.
we can know which question that you will answer. So the question from Rohani. So when the article is rejected, the publishers usually suggest for the other journals.
Yeah.
Is these journals is guaranteed that it is within our scope, or we need to check it again in ourselves? That's the first questions. The second
Okay, can I
question is
answer
there.
the first
Oh
question
yeah.
first?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So I would say always check it, right? So while we may make some recommendations for you, it's still recommendations, right? At the end of the day, you're the one who have to decide which one of this makes the most sense for you. So bear in mind the recommendations, but I will also say when we recommend to you, jump into the journal homepage, look at the aims and scope of the journal to decide which one makes more sense to you, right? We can make recommendations, but at the end of the day, it's still your article, and you probably would be able to discern by reading, right, some of these journals to understand whether or not they are better fit for you or not otherwise. So take it both ways. So we can suggest, but you have to do the critical analysis and decide for yourself which makes the most sense for you. Yeah, for the second question, Dito.
So we suggest that they can also using journal finders. And
Yeah.
then is there any tips besides using journal finders to actually fit that which articles that is suitable for our for the journals?
It's a good question, and actually, I have a very good tip for you. Most of the time, right, when you're writing that manuscript, when you're adding the references to your manuscript and you're referring to those references, take a look at which journal you're using most of those references from, right? And that's actually a very good tip because most of the time, if you're using references from a particular journal to write your manuscript, chances of the journal being a good home for your manuscript is also there as well.
Yeah.
So I would recommend you to use the references. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Next question from Faiza. I think wait.
Wait, Dito, there's a lot of echo from your end, I think. You need to do something about
Is it
your
for me?
microphone. Yeah, now it's better, I
Oh,
think. No,
yeah,
it's
I don't know
not.
why.
It's coming from your end. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait. I don't know why
I
it's
can go first,
happening.
Dito. I can just read the questions in the meantime while you sort out the microphones. Um,
Yeah.
Does Elsevier has institutional agreements or partnerships with UNDIP that help to cover or reduce APC costs, and what type of APC benefit schemes are available for Indonesian authors? I believe we have the GPOA agreement, right? If I'm not mistaken. So let me see if I can find this. This is our geographical pricing open access list. Pretty sure we have this available for Indonesia. Let me set this over.
It's okay for the GPO. I have put in the chat.
Yeah.
Yep.
I believe Indonesia is 45% of APC, so you get 55% discount. Yeah.
Yep. So to answer which one? Faiza question. So, is there any institutional agreement between UNDIP and Elsevier? Actually, there is no specific agreement. However, we have this kind of discount that is applied to all country, to the whole country, which is Indonesian authors, that you can have the discount for your manuscript when you submit. And then when it's open access, that you need also, when you need to pay the APC, actually there is a discount that is applied to all Indonesian authors. Either is UNDIP or is outside of UNDIP. So you can check in the link that I also sent to check again of the list of the journals that is applied for this discount. Okay, I hope it's answered. I think
Yeah. I've also pasted. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So next question is from Liska. Are there any tips to ensure our articles are processed quickly? So we have to wait months to see whether they're accepted or not. So we can quickly make decision to move to another journals or not.
I think you need to identify the aims and scope of the journal you're submitting to make sure that the title, abstract, keywords are all aligned, right? And after that, that's the best you can do. Just be very patient in the process. Put it this way, right? With about 4.2 million submissions, it always means that it's not always going to be very straightforward, especially if you're submitting it to a very popular journal, right? So that's one of the bottlenecks that you have to face through as well. It's not only unique to Elsevier journals, it's unique for all publishers, right? And I'll encourage you to be patient. Sometimes like you spend so much time on your research article, you spend probably 8 months on it, right? And you shouldn't want to rush it, or maybe you spend even 2 to 3 years on it, right? But you shouldn't let the necessity for speed and haste detract from finding a good home for your journal. Because at the end of the day, it's about finding a good home for your research so that your research community can read it, right? You have to be patient. Think of it as part of the process. Sometimes more haste doesn't mean more speed. It's probably usually the other way around as well. So just be very patient with regards to this. Is my recommendation. Because when rushing to find a home, and if you choose to say, if you tend to run into say a predatory journal itself, right? The predatory journals would want to like prey on you, on your necessity for speed, and they promise you, oh, we'll publish it in one day. But we know this is not possible, right? One day to publish a journal is obviously a red flag. And this is something that you should bear in mind so that you shouldn't let the need for speed, in a way, obscure your overall decision-making process. So I would say just be patient with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next question
Not
from
expecting.
Sriyanto. Yeah. Sriyanto is asking, may I ask how the Elsevier Journal Finder mechanism works when suggesting target journals? Because he often finds that the first suggestion is always the quite high APCs journals.
Yep. I would actually recommend if you find that this is not a case that you want to do, what you can easily do is to not select article processing fees or go open access journals. Then what you get will be journals that we can recommend to you in subscription journals. That is something that you may want to consider too. How it actually
Yep.
works is that it uses large natural language programming and large language models scanning to basically scan the abstract, the title, and your keywords itself, right? And you map it accordingly based on Elsevier's core of journal titles.
Yep. You can check it again when the suggestion is coming for the targeted journals. Next question from Yeni Lawati. Pertaining for a strong manuscript for a particular journal, it says that it should be clear, useful, and exciting message. How do I self-evaluate in order to know that my paper is adequate enough to be submitted? Is it the numbers of reference is also need to be checked?
I would say if you're not sure about it, I would say read it yourself. I mean, at the end of the day, right, you have to be very honest with yourself. And as a reader, you will tend to know whether or not your research paper is good or otherwise, right? You have to be very critical. And I think that's the tough thing that we all need to be with ourselves. When you're reading our own work, do we know what we're writing about? We think we know what we're writing about. But then we put ourselves in the shoe of a reader and then we ask ourselves, is this clear? Does it make sense? If you're not sure, get someone that you can trust on and rely on, right? That you can rely on being very honest with you as well. Get them to read the manuscript, see, is it clear? If I'm a layman, do I understand this? Or if I'm a subject matter expert, do I understand this as well, right? I would say reach out to your community, be very critical of yourself, and get honest feedback from your peers and your colleagues as well, right? And your supervisor as well. I would say that's probably the best way. For the number of references, it really depends on subject area. One example I would say is when you're writing your research and you're leveraging on a lot of material from one particular journal, take a look at the number of references that's being put into place by some of those articles from that manuscript itself, from that journal itself. This gives you a decent barometer. But at the end of the day, you need to critically ask yourself, is my literature review robust? Is it clear? Do I have a very strong understanding of what I need to write about? So you also, once again, the most important thing is honesty with yourself, I would say.
Okay, next from Faiza. For a self journal with a strict 6,000 words limit, is it acceptable to move most of the detailed material method into supplementary files to meet the requirement?
I would say It really depends in this case, and it really depends on your subject area. I will also say it really depends on how your figures and data tables are being put into it. And that's the beauty of it, right? Like the figures and data is meant to encapsulate all of this in a very succinct, at the same time, detailed manner. So it really is an art form to make sure that your figures and tables are clear enough. You can put a lot of the materials into supplementary files, but at the same time, you need to detail your methods in as thorough a way as possible too. So it really depends. And I'm not sure if we have a 6,000 word limit. So you might want to share this with me as well. I don't think we have that. I think it's more, we tend to have a little bit more too.
Okay, so from Suryani, I wanted to ask about percentage of AI is allowed to for similarity. What percentage? And also, is Grammarly is also an AI tool?
So I would say be very careful with regards to how, like in terms of similarity, right? I would say 10% to 20% is quite high. I will encourage you to use as much of your own words as possible. And I will once again really emphasize, please use your own words insofar as much as possible. Don't just use open AI sources for you to put your research in. That is very dangerous because you don't know how your research may be appropriated and how your data may be scraped, etc. So I would just encourage you to be very careful when you're putting in AI for AI as well. Grammarly is a language tool, but once again, the thing is you should always use your own words as much as possible. Use the tools to help you to get an idea, but then you can tweak it accordingly with your own words.
Yep. Next question. Is there anyone raising? No. Well, we mentioned about the Chinese is also one of the strongest research in quality and also quantity now. So he just mentioned about that.
Okay.
From Pak Ahyar, would you mind to inform us about some lessons learned which should we know, but this one are heard through word of mouth. So maybe like more like about the discussion going on, like gossip about the research and publications. That is not written publicly in our guidance or like in the research guidance.
Let me think of the second part, the example that he's sharing as well. I would say actually for most of the time when I speak to our editors, the one thing which I'm actually the one thing which I do appreciate a lot from our editors is the care that they really go in to find a good home for the manuscripts and the peer review process as well. Finding a peer reviewers, actually, you'd be surprised, is actually one of the hardest things that editors have had to do. Because research comes in many forms and shapes, right? And sometimes some of these research fields are very esoteric, and that's probably the most number of time that they spend. So sometimes it's not just that we are not able to, sometimes not that we spend a lot of time on the research manuscript. It's really because we're trying to find the correct peer reviewer to review the manuscript. And it's not just one peer reviewer, especially in a very esoteric research field. It's a couple of them, right? And we need to make sure that they are good enough too. They have a substantial quality and substantive enough standard that they are able to peer review the manuscript that is submitted to us. And this is actually some of the main reasons why there's a long time of return. And you can imagine, right? If the research field is so specific, it just means that they are just more in demand. And as a result, this probably adds along to the timelines as to why the paper may take a longer time to come back. But once again, it's all entirely circumstantial. It depends on the subject area, it depends on the manuscript. But this is something that I think people don't really recognize or realize. So I thought maybe you might find this useful.
Okay, next question for Tirto. I think I can also answer this one. Elsevier journal creation with UNDIP library to workshop, writing, publishing, suggestion, and others else. So I think this is one of the things that we create, Pak Tirto. So this is one of our commitment to actually ensuring that our product Elsevier is terus-menerus dipakai di Undip seperti itu, dan juga membantu Bapak Ibu di Undip itu bisa menulis dan juga bisa melakukan penulisan dan publikasi yang baik seperti itu. So we set the foundational knowledge from here, from Elsevier perspective, from ours on how to do the writing and publishing. After that, maybe from Perpustakaan, from the library, can also have their own program about what to do to empower the researcher in the Undip. So this is one of the things that we support Bapak Ibu in Elsevier untuk bisa memberikan pelatihan mengenai penulisan dan juga publikasi. Hopefully it's useful for Bapak Ibu semua.
Yeah,
Okay,
adding
I
on to
think
what Dito has mentioned, I think one of the key things that we like to ask customer success to do is to really support our research communities. We see ourselves as partners, right? It's not really that we really want to help partner and to improve the capacity building for our customers around the region. And this is where the partnership is very important. So thank you so much for having me here today. And thank you so much to Dito as well for having me to speak and to present over here at UNDIP. It's a pleasure.
Okay, I think this is the follow-up question from Faiza. Questions about the journals that have the limited total words. That articles should not be exceed for 12 and 15 typewritten page or up to 5,000 words, including references, tables, and figures. So it's difficult to adjust.
I would say, Faisal, what you can do is you can go to, once again, right, if you're looking at the journal specifically at phytomedicine, then what you can do is you can take a look at some of the examples as to how the manuscripts, the most recent articles in phytomedicine is like, how they structure the article and what is within the supplementary thing. So maybe this is a way that you can use it as a guidance for you to structure your manuscript as well. Because you already have a journal, so that helps you to be very clear with examples.
Yep. Okay, I think the question in chat, ada lagi Bapak Ibu semua? Is there any question in chat? Or Bapak Ibu, is there anyone to raise hand and speak for themselves? Unmute yourself. Silakan Bapak Ibu. Kita masih punya waktu untuk melakukan sesi tanya jawab.
Ya,
Silakan. Oh,
janganlah engkau condongkan hati kami kepada
ada yang unmute?
kalau engkau berikan petunjuk kepada
Enggak. Oke. Rekan. Oke, nanti untuk materi akan kami kirimkan ya Bapak Ibu ya. Kalau tidak ada lagi, mungkin bisa kita cukupkan. We will share the deck after this, Bapak Ibu. Nanti akan dikirimkan juga melalui perpustakaan Undip seperti itu. So if there's no questions anymore, thank you so much, Bapak Ibu. Thank you Nicholas for sharing this. Saya berikan kembali kepada MC. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih.
Baik, terima kasih kepada Bapak Pratipta. Saya juga ingin mengucapkan terima kasih kepada Bapak Nicholas dengan materinya yaitu Writing a Great Paper and Getting It Published. Thank you, Mr. Pradipta. I would like also to extend our sincere appreciation to Mr. Nicholas Pak for delivering his presentation entitled Writing a Great Paper and Getting It Published. Selanjutnya, kami informasikan kembali kepada seluruh peserta bahwa untuk mendapatkan sertifikat webinar pada hari ini, Bapak Ibu dapat mengisi link presensi yang telah kami lampirkan pada layar. Pastikan dalam pengisian link presensi, nama, beserta email sesuai dengan data diri Bapak Ibu untuk memudahkan kami dalam proses pengiriman. Before we conclude today's webinar, we would like to remind all participants that to receive your webinar certificate, please complete the attending form using the link displayed on the screen. Kindly ensure that your full name and email address are entered correctly. as this will help us to process and send your certificate without any issues. Kami informasikan bahwa kegiatan kami selanjutnya dapat dilihat melalui sosial media kami. We also like to inform you that updates on our upcoming event and activities can be found through our social media platform. Instagram @perpus.undip, X @perpus_undip, TikTok @perpus.undip.press, Facebook Perpustakaan Undip, website digilid.undip.ac.id. Saya ucapkan terima kasih kepada peserta yang telah bergabung pada webinar hari ini. Semoga informasi yang disampaikan dapat dipahami bagi kita semua. Mohon maaf apabila selama memandu acara terdapat hal-hal yang kurang berkenan. Saya Shirley Sylvia selaku MC serta panitia yang bertugas mohon pamit undur diri. I would like to thank all participants for joining today's webinar. We hope the information shared during this session has been valuable and beneficial to everyone. On behalf of the organizing committee, I sincerely apologize for any shortcoming or information during the event. My name is Shirley Sylvia, your Master of Ceremonies for today's webinar. Together with the organizing committee, I would like to thank you once again for your participation. This concludes today's webinar. We wish you a wonderful day ahead. Goodbye and see you our next event. Jangan lupa untuk kepada Bapak Ibu untuk mengisi link presensi yang sudah ditampilkan dan sudah dikirimkan melalui kolom chat. Terima kasih.